Hello, I'm Oliver Mead, and I've been set the challenge of producing a public-facing project that links my practice as a writer with the United Nations Strategic Development Goal. I chose Goal 15, Life on Land, as I realised it is very difficult to achieve these goals, in no small part because so many of the human beings with the power to positively protect and save ecosystems and biodiversity have, like many of us without power, lost their connection with the natural world, even the little bits that somehow manage to survive in the middle of dense cities. About 20 years ago, I came across haiku while watching an episode of South Park, and I remember Kyle and Stan's counting their syllables to get the 5-7-5 pattern when they spoke. Not long after, I found a copy of the Haiku Handbook by William J. Higginson, and was then hooked on haiku for several years. During that time, I did well in a couple of Japanese haiku competitions, had work included in an exhibition of contemporary English language haiku in Osaka, and had my work published in anthologies and magazines in the UK and Japan. The key impact of haiku on my life was that they helped me to start really looking closely at the natural world around me and reflecting on my relationship with it. That in turn led to my feeling connected with other living things in a deep way and realizing that I'm just another animal living on this incredible planet. Since when I've been much more protective towards nature, especially when it is threatened by poor quality human developments that are destroying it for no positive gain. It has also made me much more precise in my use of words, and that has paid off in academic essays and my short story work. In the web links at the end of this video, you will find a link to an apocalyptic sci-fi story I wrote in 2025, so please do feel free to take a look at that if you would like to see how haiku and a connection with nature can work in a short story. The project I'm presenting today is a simple introduction to writing haiku that will hopefully inspire you to try writing haiku yourself, connecting with the natural world in the process, and then posting a haiku of yours in the comments section beneath this video to create a growing online anthology of haiku that anyone who is interested can read and take inspiration from as they start exploring haiku for themselves. If you're watching this video in early January 2026, I would also appreciate feedback on what you thought went well and the things I could improve on for the future. Because I'm a little hazy about the copyright rules for making YouTube videos, all the photographs and examples used here are my own work, as I don't want some angry publisher getting in touch in the future. So what are haiku? Traditionally in English they've been defined as 3 lines long, following a 5-7-5 syllable pattern, and using a season word or kigo in Japan. And an example of that would be rain patters softly, drips slowly through the old roof, I become the rain. But since the early 20th century, in Japan they have not required a season word, and there have been very strong disagreements among English language haiku writers about the use of the 5-7-5 syllable pattern, as the onji, not syllables, used by the Japanese are very different from the syllables we have in English. I do not propose to get into that debate here, but you can read more about it in the Haiku Handbook and elsewhere. But an example of a contemporary haiku, therefore, would be Splosh, a large child in his 40s finds a puddle. For the purpose of this workshop, I will define haiku using the conventions that the Japanese apply to haiku in English in their competitions and publications, out of respect for their literary form. 3 lines, shorter, longer, shorter line lengths, and to help us to connect more with nature, either a season or nature word. And so an example of that would be no flowers, a garden sleeping under snow. What is a season word? Well, I've got some examples here of season words that we could apply in Britain, where I come from. And so I've separated them out from one season to another. And spring daffodils emerge all over the country and are associated with St. David's Day in Wales. We have Easter. In the summer, we have a long school holiday. Roses and other flowers bloom, and sometimes if the weather is actually good, we get barbecues and things going on. In the autumn, we have something called bonfire night. I know in other countries they have Thanksgiving and all sorts of other festivals. And in the winter, we have leafless trees, and we tend to have a break around Christmas and New Year. An example of a season here would be, or use of season here, would be August afternoon, lying naked on my bed, even the air sweats. This haiku was written during a heat wave when I was struggling to cope with the temperature. Our relationship with the weather can also be a way of connecting with nature. Here are some examples of nature words. They're all fairly simple and straightforward, and these are just examples you can find for yourself, words that apply to you and where you live. But I think it's useful to note that you can even find that TV and videos of nature can be ways of inspiring a haiku, and also of just looking at what's happening to creatures around the world can help you to be much more aware and much more sympathetic towards what these animals are going through as well. I'm still haunted from seeing an orangutan trying to get a huge set of logging equipment and diggers and things to stop from destroying the forest it was living in, that was shared online a few years ago. It's just incredible. But I've also picked examples of wildlife. For example, robins, foxes and bumblebees all live in my back garden at different times of the year, or visit my back garden. And I've included weather and plants as well. And so an example here that I took from I think it was a David Attenborough nature documentary, is at the waterhole, drinking his reflection, a young lion. So here are some more haiku tips. And haiku are not that complicated, but they are deceptively simple. So an example here is that they're written in the present tense, they do not rhyme, and they have one main image or two connected or juxtaposed images. And on that last point, here are two examples of haiku that contain two images. In the first, they're connected. Gardeners buzzing around their allotments, a swarm of bees. So you have the gardeners and you have the swarm of bees, and they're connected obviously by the allotment. But in the second, they're juxtaposed. April shower, the coffee shop floods with pensioners. The expectation when we see the coffee shop floods is that it will flood with water, but I'm sure to the great relief of the people working in the coffee shop, it actually floods with pensioners who are likely to end up buying a cup of tea and maybe even having a bun or a cake to go with it. Here are a couple of photographs I've taken of nature in cities, and everyday life experiences such as being in a coffee shop when it starts raining outside and it fills up with people can be great sources of haiku. These photographs are on the left. It's a block of flats in Nantes that I was visiting a few years ago, and I noticed they had all these incredible plants growing on their balconies. On the right is a photograph of central Sheffield, and Sheffield quite remarkably beautiful in its way, even with the brutalist architecture in the background, the trees all beginning to change colour for the autumn there. But as I said, everyday life experiences can be a great source of haiku, and one photograph earlier of a solitary tree next to a building site in Barnsley, that just gives you an example of nature that you can notice in unexpected places, and nature somehow living and surviving and thriving in spite of the best efforts of human beings. So I hope this will help you to think about how you might notice the natural world and bits of nature in the area where you live as you go about your business, and perhaps to begin to connect with it. This photograph here is of a massive hazel bush that's growing in my back garden. In fact, there are loads of them, and every year there seem to be new ones trying to emerge. All of these bushes were planted by local squirrels. Just to give you an idea there, that bush must be at least 20 feet high. This is many times my height. But they're all planted by local squirrels who are busy all year round, scampering along walls, climbing trees, and occasionally leaping onto my kitchen roof. And it inspired the haiku, "Squirrels hiding their nuts, planting trees." And this is a timely reminder that haiku can use humour. Basho, the main founder of haiku, often used humour as well as his strong meditative approach in his work as a writer. I do hope that this short introduction to haiku will help you to become more connected to the nature around you and lead to more of us working together to protect the living things that seem to survive so precariously in our midst. And I do look forward to reading your haiku in the comments section below. As a final slide here, this is a photograph of Manchester city centre. A few months ago I noticed this gorgeous moon floating above the sky in Bristol, and the whole city seemed to be so busy and so full of people, all busy, caught up in their own lives, and nobody noticing this gorgeous moon in the sky. Butter-coloured moon, the growling, snarling city never looks up. I think this reflects well on how we as a society don't sometimes notice the beauty of the natural world around us. And hopefully, after listening to my simple little introduction and looking back at the slides and using them as a sort of crib sheet on what you might want to include in a haiku, this will inspire you in your work, and you might enjoy writing haiku as much as I have over the years and connecting more with the natural world around you. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.